Με σκηνές απόλυτης καταστροφής και χάους ήρθαν αντιμέτωποι οι εκατοντάδες χιλιάδες εκτοπισμένοι, οι οποίοι επέστρεψαν πριν λίγες ημέρες στο βόρειο τμήμα της Λωρίδας της Γάζας μετά την εφαρμογή της εκεχηρίας. Σχεδόν το σύνολο των 2,4 εκατομμυρίων κατοίκων της Γάζας εκτοπίστηκαν λόγω του πολέμου. Όταν έφτασε η πολυπόθητη στιγμή της επιστροφής, μία λαοθάλασσα ανδρών, γυναικών και παιδιών φορτωμένων με αποσκευές ξεχύθηκε στους δρόμους που θα τους οδηγούσαν σπίτι. Περπατώντας ανάμεσα σε ισοπεδωμένα κτίρια και βουνά από συντρίμμια, μπορούσαν σε έναν βαθμό να καταλάβουν τι θα αντίκριζαν, φτάνοντας στην πόλη τους ή τουλάχιστον σε ό,τι είχε απομείνει από εκείνη. Ο Franz Luef, συντονιστής έκτακτης ανάγκης, μέλος των Γιατρών Χωρίς Σύνορα, μίλησε στο News 24/7 για το πώς υποδέχτηκαν οι εκτοπισμένοι την εκεχειρία έπειτα από 15 και πλέον μήνες που βιώνουν τη φρίκη του πολέμου.
Rather quickly, the following hours and days changed into mixed feelings, you know, people thinking of what would they find when they go back to their homes. They had to leave months back. Would they be destroyed? Many details of the agreement are not known yet. When they will be able to go back, you know, what would they find? So it's the immediate joy was somehow later replaced by many doubts, having uncertainty they have to cope with right now. The last few days after the ceasefire, in our movements back and forth to the facilities we support, we could see that people are less tense in a way, you know. It's the first time for a very, very long time they are not exposed to shelling, shooting, being afraid 24 hours a day. So you could see it in the faces that, or in their body language as well, that there is less tension. On the other hand, with more humanitarian aid coming in, what we have observed is that prices on the markets for food, for vegetables, for fruits are falling drastically, which is, of course, a good sign. And we have seen as well in the overcrowded camps where we have set up our clinics that some families started to back up their tents and preparing for the moment they can move back up north or to the south to Ράφα.
Περιγράφοντας όσα αντίκρισαν οι ομάδες των Γιατρών Χωρίς Σύνορα πηγαίνοντας στη Ράφα προκειμένου να δουν τι απέμεινε από τις γειτονιές αλλά και τις εγκαταστάσεις υγείας, κάνει λόγο για ένα θέαμα που δεν το χωρά ο ανθρώπινος νους.
I was here in Gaza last year in mid-February till the end of March. By then we had activities, medical activities at the Emirati maternity hospital in Рафа, but as well in the health center in Jabura. And it was just the day before yesterday, our teams could return to Рафа to assess on what was left, or is left, from the neighborhoods and the health facilities we were before. And what our teams have seen, it's just unbelievable. The level of destruction in and around the area of the Emirati maternity hospital is estimated up to 80% of buildings being destructed. When we arrived at the street of the hospital, our teams did not recognize the neighborhood. And that's the level of destruction all of you have seen in the media. It's really striking. And when I came back a few days to Gaza, and I entered to Рафа or through Рафа going to Khan Yunis, I was appalled the level of destruction on houses, of entire blocks and streets being completely flattened. It's the rebuilding and reconstruction of main infrastructure of hospitals, of health facilities, of the health system. It will take a collective effort for decades.
Σχετικά με τους τραυματίες και άλλους ασθενείς που περιθάλπουν οι Γιατροί Χωρίς Σύνορα, ο Λούεφ αναφέρει πως εκείνο που τους ανησυχεί περισσότερο όσο οι άνθρωποι επιστρέφουν στις πόλεις τους είναι τα απομεινάρια των βομβαρδισμών, τα μισοκατεστραμμένα βλήματα που βρίσκονται ακόμα και σε κεντρικούς δρόμους.
So far, over the last weeks, the patients we see in our clinics and in the hospital, their mobility, their medical issues have not changed. What we are very worried about is now that people are starting to move back to now areas they had not access before, be it Рафа or be it Gaza City, that the presence of unexploded ordnances, shells, remnants of walls, being under the rubble, being in the street, is an increased, a very high risk for the population. So we have seen already, just as a small anecdote, when our team was going back to Рафа 2 days ago, we saw on the street children playing with pieces of a shell, with pieces of shrapnel, you know, and once if the area is not cleared and people do return too early, it will certainly represent a very high risk for the population returning. Then, of course, people cannot return if basic services like water or health services are not set up. So that's why I think what I mentioned before, there are mixed emotions among the population right now. You know, it's even if I can go back to my home, which is probably destroyed, if there isn't any medical aid or medical services or humanitarian aid provided, or I would not have access, or I would not have shelter, it will be very, very difficult for them to return.
Στέλνοντας ένα μήνυμα προς τη διεθνή κοινότητα, ο Λούεφ ζητά πρώτα να τηρηθεί η εκεχειρία, ελπίζοντας πως θα μετατραπεί σε οριστικό τέλος του πολέμου και έπειτα να συνεχίσουν ή και να αυξηθούν οι ροές ανθρωπιστικής βοήθειας.
I think as shared already, the most important thing is to call upon all parties to respect the ceasefire. And to all countries as well who are in a position to exercise leverage that ceasefire is maintained and hopefully transition from a temporary ceasefire to a permanent one. And the second is to ensure that sufficient humanitarian aid is actually coming into Gaza. I think that are the most important calls we have in order to assist the Gazan population throughout this period.